What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here. Welcome to our daily show where we discuss everything going on here in our country that you need to know about here on a daily basis. All right, Congress is working here on this $1.7 trillion bill, of which over half of it is for the defense of our country. Also, $45 billion for Ukraine on top of that. Yeah, that's how much it costs every single year to fund just the military. And it's going to be $1 trillion sooner or later just for the defense of our country. Yeah, and President Zelensky from Ukraine was just here in the United States, and I'll let you see some footage here. He just addressed Congress, and I'll let you hear that here in a second. Also, we got a lot to go over here in this video, so thank you so much for liking and sharing these videos. And if you're new here, make sure to click the subscribe button down below so you don't miss out on new videos. And let's jump right in. Here's what just happened here. President Zelensky from Ukraine. Take a listen to this.
Here is some of that historic address.
Against all odds and doom and gloom scenarios, Ukraine didn't fall. Ukraine is alive and kicking. Thank you for both financial packages you have already provided us with and the ones you may be willing to decide on. Your money is not charity. It's an investment in the global security and democracy that we handle in the most responsible way. If Russian missiles attack us, we'll do our best to protect ourselves. If they attack us with Iranian drones and our people will have to go to bomb shelters on Christmas Eve, Ukrainians will still sit down at the holiday table and cheer up each other. And we don't have to know everyone's wish, as we know that all of us, millions of Ukrainians, wish the same: victory. Only victory. Standing here today, I recall the words of the President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, which are, I think, so good for this moment. The American people, in their righteous might, will win through to absolute victory. The Ukrainian people will win too, absolutely.
And there you see Republicans and Democrats alike giving President Zelensky a standing ovation. Richard Haass, I'd love to get your insights on the speech, what it means. Also, something that we've talked about an awful lot, something that you've said, that one of the great challenges for America doesn't come from overseas, but right here at home. Republicans and Democrats needing to work together at foreign policy and at politics ending at water's edge. And I look at last night as a positive sign for America, for Washington. You look at the bipartisan legislation passed over the last 2 years. You look at the negotiations and the legislation that may be going through in a bipartisan manner coming up. It actually shows a Washington that is working.
Now, there was considerable bipartisanship. The pending omnibus spending bill, which includes considerable funds for Ukraine, being part of it. Just as a 10-second aside, also reform of the 1877 Electoral Count Act, which doesn't get a lot of attention, but might be the single most important thing Congress does in the run-up to the 2024 election. I thought Mr. Zelensky last night, President Zelensky, made a real appeal to explain why this was in America's interest. I thought the line that money we spend is not charity, but was an investment, and essentially in our own extended self-interest was exactly right. Might have been the most important line of the speech, Joe. It was an educational line. And I think that was a big part of his purpose, was to shore up support, obviously worried about what a Republican House might do, worried about the left side of the Democratic Party. So I think part of his message was to appeal to Congress, both sides, to the American people, but also to put some pressure on the administration. when he basically said, about tanks, about missiles, about airplanes. We can learn to use these. We can use these responsibly. And part of the backdrop to this visit was continuing friction, if you want to call it that, or some disagreement about how aggressively to prosecute this war. The Ukrainians want to prosecute it aggressively, if quote unquote, to win. The Americans have clearly, the United States has given them enough support so they don't lose, but some unease about being too aggressive, concerned about how the Russians might react, about the possibility of escalation, and also some friction, or again, not exactly on the same page about what the definition of victory is. Mr. Zelensky obviously talking about getting back all of their territory. For some people in the administration, again, or for outsiders, say Henry Kissinger, who wrote a piece the other day, that it puts Russia in a corner and, again, could risk escalation. So I thought it was a really positive speech. Hard not to be emotional watching that. And I agree with you. I like the signs of bipartisanship, all too rare. But I think we shouldn't kid ourselves. There are some big unresolved issues in the backdrop.
Yeah. So it's what he said there, Zelensky. Imagine sitting down for Christmas and being bombed, being having to go down to a bomb shelter on Christmas or Christmas Eve, and it's unbelievable what Ukraine is still going through. And honestly, they could be going through this next Christmas even at the rate this is going. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. So you guys can let me know your thoughts here in the comments. Wow. And you can see here, Kremlin warns of a long war after Biden offers more support on Zelensky's visit to the U.S. Remember that any support, though, needs to be passed by Congress, both Republicans and Democrats. Biden can't send any money to Ukraine without Republican support. It has to be passed through Congress. That's a big misconception, just to let everybody know here. It has to be passed through Congress. But the Kremlin and Russian President Putin warns of a long war, as the war approaches 10 months. Russia's foreign ministry condemned what it calls the monstrous crimes of the regime in Kyiv. Foreign ministry spokesman from Ukraine said that no matter how much military support the West provides the Ukrainian government, they will achieve nothing. Remember that Ukraine is literally just defending their own country. So they will achieve nothing but defending their own people. Quote, as the leadership of our country has stated, the task set within the framework of the special military operation, not invading another country, a special military operation, will be fulfilled, taking into account the situation of the ground, on the ground, and the actual realities, referring to Russia's war in Ukraine. Or, sorry, not the war, the special military operation, right? This comes as the U.S. Announced the, quote, first ever transfer to Ukraine of the Patriot air and missile defense system, capable of bringing down cruise missiles, short-range ballistic missiles, and aircraft at a significantly higher ceiling than previously provided air defense systems. The Patriot system is an acronym that means Phased Array Tracking Radar for intercept on target. It is considered one of the most capable long-range air defense systems on the market. However, the Kremlin denounced the transaction and said the U.S. supplying Ukraine with Patriot missile systems to defend themselves from the rockets that Russia shoots at Ukraine apartment buildings and homes on a daily basis will prolong the Ukrainian people's suffering. A Kremlin spokesperson said, quote, we see that, in fact, the United States and other countries are following the path of constantly expanding the range and raising the technical level of weapons that they supply to Ukraine. Remember, these are defense weapons to shoot down missiles that Russia shoots at homes, apartment buildings, hospitals, and schools. This does not contribute to a speedy settlement of the situation, on the contrary. And they said that this will not prevent Russia from achieving its goals in Ukraine. This leads to the fact that, unfortunately, the suffering of the Ukraine people will continue longer than it could have. Russia added that there were no real calls for peace. Zelensky did stress that we need peace, reiterating the 10-point peace plan devised by Ukraine. Yeah, so you guys can let me know your thoughts here. Unfortunately, both sides have different ideas of peace. Um, you know, Russia's idea of peace is basically, well, Ukraine surrender and be under Russian control, surrender a vast portion of your land to Russia, and be under our regime, which is just absolutely crazy. Um, especially with Russia being pushed back out of territory. I mean, Russia has actually confirmed this as, they just lost the city of Kherson. And I mean, Russia's own military has confirmed this. And I mean, there's footage of them, retreating out of the cities. But I mean, you guys can let me know your thoughts here on this. But I mean, peace agreements when an army is retreating isn't exactly, it's not a peace. Just, oh, you guys surrender isn't exactly a peace negotiation. Meanwhile, we're dealing with a kind of threat, not of the same magnitude, but here's what President Biden has to say.
And it goes from Oklahoma all the way to Wyoming and Wyoming to Maine, and it's a real consequence. So I encourage everyone, please heed the local warnings. We've tried to contact 26 governors so far in affected regions, and go to weather.gov for more information. And I know this is, it's not like a snow day, when you're a kid. This is serious stuff. And my team is prepared to help communities weather this, no pun intended, this storm, this freeze, and because we need to cope. They need to be able to cope with this necessary. I'm going to shortly be briefed by both FEMA and the National Weather Service, and we're going to start that briefing. But in the meantime, please take this storm extremely seriously. And I don't know whether your bosses will let you, but if you all have travel plans, leave now. Not a joke. I'm sending my staff, if they had plans to leave on tomorrow, late tonight or tomorrow, I'm telling them to leave now. They can talk to me on the phone. It's not life and death, but it will be if they don't get out. They may not get out. So at any rate, thank you all for coming in, and I'm going to do the briefing now.
Yeah, this comes as already over 1,000 flights already canceled as this massive winter storm sweeps. Well, really, we're seeing a lot of storms across the whole country in different parts. They're saying that this could be a record-breaking storm, or storms with an S, kind of converging across the whole United States, almost the whole United States here. As of 8:15 a.m., Chicago Midway International Airport, 25% of Thursday flights were canceled, the highest percentage of any U.S. airport. Kansas City, 23% of flights were canceled, followed by Des Moines, Iowa International Airport, 21% of all flights canceled already. 186 outbound flights on Thursday alone were canceled, representing about 18% of flights at Chicago O'Hare in anticipation of winter weather arriving. Airlines have already begun canceling flights for Friday, with 30% canceled at Gerald R. Ford International Airport near Grand Rapids, Michigan, and 26% at the Detroit Metro Airport hub at Delta Airlines. Wow. There's 2.4 million people traveling on Wednesday, according to data. Wow. Arizona, facing a federal lawsuit, decides they will remove the border shipping containers that they had placed as a makeshift border on the on the border. And Arizona outgoing governor Doug Ducey, Republican, and the state have agreed to remove the shipping containers placed along the U.S.-Mexico border after facing a lawsuit from the federal government. Governor Doug Ducey signed an executive order in August instructing the state agency to close the gaps in Arizona's southern border wall, as officials recorded a record number of migrant encounters, with many crossing the border into Arizona. The Department of Justice is suing Ducey last week over his placement over the containers, arguing they were illegally constructed on federal lands. The other issue with those is I showed you some previous pictures. I don't have them readily available right now here in front of me, but there were some large gaps in between them. So anybody really trying to cross the border there could have just kind of walked down there and found a gap. So I don't know how well those worked. It was kind of a good thought if you want to keep those out, but I don't know in reality how well they worked to actually, because you got to think if someone's actually going, how many miles, I don't know, hundreds of miles to actually cross the border. I don't know if they would have seen that and then say, oh, well, we're going to go back, when they could have just, kind of walked down and found a gap. So I don't know, but I guess it was a kind of a good thought. But you got to remember here that Texas is actually building their own border wall. And of course, we know the Trump border wall. President Biden has actually announced, the White House has actually announced that they are closing and fixing some of the gaps in the border wall. Stark contrast from everything that they have ever said before this, which was that they, were against the border wall completely. So, yeah, it's things are changing, and yeah, the Biden administration has taken so much heat over the illegal migrants crossing. Because remember, these aren't people that are like doing their paperwork and coming in to the country the legal way. So you guys can let me know your thoughts here on this. Also, I want to do today's trivia question. If you guess the answer here, you could win money directly from me. The way it works here, I'm going to give you a trivia question right now. If you guess the answer, you'll be entered into the pool of people who have guessed correctly. And from there, we have a random comment picker that will pick a few people to be considered the winner at random. And it's completely free to guess. And all you need to do to guess is leave a comment down below. And we're doing these trivia questions every day until Christmas, and we'll be doing some more after as well. So make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel down below. Just click the subscribe button, then the bell icon. It's completely free to do so. Remember that new videos come out here every day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And also, thanks so much for liking and sharing these videos. The winners will get $50 each per winner. And today's trivia question is, what profession does Rudolph's elf friend wish he did instead of being an elf? What profession does Rudolph's elf friend wish he did instead of being an elf? If you think you know, please leave a comment down below, and you might be picked as a winner. Yeah. So that's today's trivia question. We will have more here going forward. And yeah, so leave a comment down below. You can click here to watch my newest video next. And you can click here to see my newest video on the update on the government funding $1.7 trillion bills and what's inside that bill. So click on one of these videos next. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.